What is going on, guys? Today we're back with another video, and today's video is gonna be a little bit different than most of the videos. Not a whole lot of fishing gonna go on in this video, but it's early in the morning right now. I'm back in northern Wisconsin at home, and I'm about to take off for the St. Paul Ice Show. And kind of just want to do a quick, cool video, maybe show some cool products, maybe show some new stuff that's coming out, that kind of a thing. Give you guys a kind of taste of what that is like. So, and it is kind of a cool thing, you know. Ice fishing's this season where it's interest in it goes up super quickly, super fast, and then like kind of fades very quickly. It's like we all get super excited for ice fishing in November, late November, early December, and then all of a sudden it's, you know, February, and all of a sudden we're all like, oh, we just want to be back in a boat. So it's this incredible season of just up and down extreme enthusiasm, and at the front end of it like this, in early December, enthusiasm is just sky high. So a lot of excitement, a lot of cool products coming out, and a lot of stuff like that. So in a second here, we're gonna drink some coffee, get in the truck. It's kind of a snowstorm, not really a snowstorm, but it's snowing pretty good outside this morning, and jump in the truck, head down to St. Paul, and hopefully we'll see you guys there with some cool stuff, I guess. Puppies stay. Puppies stay here. Stay, stay. What is going on, guys? We are officially down here at the St. Paul Ice Show, and it is a busy day. Ton of people, ton of enthusiasm for ice fishing, and it's cool to see. You know, we've been on ice for a few days now, obviously up in Minnesota, and now we're down here at the ice show, seeing everybody also excited to get on the ice. And right now we're in the ACME booth. We're going to talk about a bait that you guys just saw, so that kind of generated quite a bit of excitement on a recent YouTube video we did up at Red Lake, and that is the new Hyper Hammer. And this is kind of a cool little bait. And you know, this style of bait, these glide baits, have been around for a little while now, and they're just kind of gaining traction. They're obviously super popular. Now, this comes in a whole bunch of different sizes, all the way up from a 1 ounce down to kind of a real small, kind of finessey walleye, panfish, perch size, and a bunch of different colors. Now, up at Red Lake, we're using this real small size. And I might have mentioned it a little bit in the video, but really what makes this smaller size special, especially under the ice, is that you can work the bait really soft and it still has a lot of action. This bigger size 1 ounce, we've been catching a bunch of fish open water with it on the Mississippi River, Devil's Lake, North Dakota, kind of all over. But these smaller sizes, one thing I always say when you're working a bait under the ice, is the less movement you can put on your rod to still make that bait have a lot of movement is an absolute key under the ice. And these baits, they got a bunch of rattles in them, the side-to-side pin rattle. They also got a rattle right in the eyes, flexible tailpiece, beefed up upsized hooks. This style of bait's notorious for losing a lot of fish on. We're fishing these bigger hooks on here. You lose far less fish. It's got that upsized back hook and the treble on the bottom. But my favorite part is, like I said, these baits are a little bit lighter because they're hollowed out and they got that synthetic tail on them, so you don't have to do a lot. You can almost sit here, you know, you might be working a bait that's like your standard big glide bait where you really got to crank that rod to get it to move a lot. These baits, you can just sit here and almost work it like a spoon, where you're kind of just twitching it like you would a flutter spoon, and this bait's just sitting down there, darting this way, darting back this way, so it does not take a lot of movement to have that bait have a lot of action. Now, there's always two different actions I'll do on a bait. One's like the attracting quality, and one's the quality I'll do when I'm trying to get a fish to bite. When I'm fishing these baits, I'm trying to get that big attracting quality. I'm hitting it a little bit harder and getting that bait to swing a lot more. Now, the second I start seeing a fish, what I'll do is I'll slow that down and start working it up, kind of doing this with my rod. And still with those little twitches on that rod, that bait's kind of shooting this way, shooting that way. And when you're about to get a bite, let that bait come back to center and settle right before you hit it. Now, I don't fish any bait on here, so any live bait, I don't put a minnow head on there at all. So you don't want to let the bait like sit still and freeze for a long time, but I'll let it pop it out, let it come back to center, and the second it hits that center line again, I'll move it again. So keep it moving a little bit, and most of the time you don't need any live bait on here. And this is definitely a bait you guys are gonna be seeing a whole bunch through the ice this year, this Hyper Hammer. And it's a super cool bait, and thought we'd kind of give a little bit of an explanation on kind of what it is, how we're fishing it, and things like that while we're down here at the St. Paul Ice Show. All right, another cool bait. I got the opportunity to fish a whole bunch last year. This is the second year I think I've fished it through the ice quite a bit, and it's the same body as the Kastmaster Spoon, which you guys know has been just obviously incredibly productive. It's one of the best baits you can put on your ice rod all season long, really. But this is the tungsten version of that. Comes in 3 different sizes, and this is gonna be the size. Your big one is kind of gonna be the size of a 12th ounce spoon. So it's a little bit of a downsize. You know, a lot of the spoons, probably the most common sizes, they are 1/8 ounce. And this is a little bit of a downsize from that. Now, it comes in 3 different sizes. Here's kind of the small guy right here, and you can kind of see the difference if you're looking at them like that. The big size, I use a lot in deep water when I'm trying to downsize for finicky walleyes. You know, you get that time a lot of times midwinter on to late winter where you're dealing with fish that are a little bit more finicky. And having something, you know, whether you're out on the mud flats on Mille Lacs or fishing deep water on these deep humps that a lot of these fish get on late in the winter, fishing something that's in this real small profile but also heavy in the winter is a game changer. You know, the Castmaster is an awesome bait, but when you start getting some of the lighter sizes and going in deep water, it's tough to keep that line tight where you can really manipulate that bait a lot, keep that hard pounding action you want a lot of times when you're fishing spoons, and really feel that bite and make sure the bait's doing everything you want. So fishing this, and this is actually one of my favorite colors. If you can find Wonder Bread or a lot of this purple, if you can find it in a purple, get your hands on them because they're an absolute killer for a lot of times for our deep water walleyes when they get finessy. Now, the smaller size has probably been the biggest game changer. The Castmaster spoon, fishing deep water for like crappies or suspended bluegills, has always been a killer. But when you go from that lighter spoon to the same size into tungsten, and you can keep that tight line and fish it a little bit quicker, like we always want to do when we're fishing suspended fish in deep water, is an absolute game changer. And what I'll do with this, I don't rarely put anything on here for live bait, especially if I'm crappie fishing basin. I keep that spoon moving. It's got that little red hook, and I think that hook just kind of swings around enough on there, and when you keep that moving, it's an absolutely killer presentation out in deep water. Now, if you're a bluegill guy, maybe just tipping it with a couple Euros or a waxy on there might be the deal. For crappies, I rarely put anything on here. And one big tip whenever I'm talking ice fishing and jigging fish and getting them to commit and actually catch those fish is jig through the bite. And if you don't have bait on, it's super important to keep that bait moving through the bite, so you're always jigging through the bite. And what I mean by that is a lot of guys have this tendency where they'll be working a spoon like this, they'll start marking that fish and they'll just stop with their rod and kind of wait for that bite. What you really want to do is jig through that bite. You know, kind of keep that spoon pounding. As a fish is coming up to bite, keep it moving and keep it pulling up, and just kind of make those actions a little bit more finessey and wait for that fish to load the rod tip, and you'll catch a lot more fish. So fishing these tungsten Castmasters, awesome bait whether you're walleye fishing, bluegill fishing, crappie fishing in deep water. Jig through the bite on these and you guys are going to catch a ton of fish this season. All right, guys, we're here in the Two Brothers Innovations booth today, checking out some ice rods. Going to kind of answer a bunch of the questions and show you guys some new product and why I love fishing this Evolution series in the Elliott rods category. And if you're looking at a lot of these longer rods, these 40+ inch rods, and you're like, man, that is super long for an ice rod, I'll explain a lot of those advantages to you. But one of the rods I'm most excited about fishing this winter is a new noodle rod, which is a 42-inch noodle rod. And this is going to be the ultimate panfish rod through the ice. Whether you're hole hopping, fishing in a shack, whatever it is, this rod, they absolutely nailed the design on this thing. 42 inches long, it's got a really light tip. What you want when you're fishing a panfish rod, whether it's crappie rod or bluegill rod, is a rod that when you load it with like a 3 or 4 or 5 mil tungsten, the tip's gonna load up just slightly. You're gonna be able to detect a down bite and you're gonna be able to detect an up bite. Now, one of the biggest advantages when you're fishing a longer rod like this, number one, it's just incredibly fun. When you set the hook on fish and that rod really loads up, it's an absolute blast fighting them on a longer rod. But one of the biggest advantages is that you can load these rods a lot better. When you take a 42-inch rod and load it up, look how much load this rod has through the middle of the section. You cannot get that on like a 30-inch, a 28-inch, a 26-inch ice fishing rod. So you lose a lot less fish when you have a rod that loads very deep into it. The other obvious advantage, when you're hole hopping and running around, you can get that tip right above the hole, move that thing, and you're not kind of kneeled down way like this. Your line's not blowing around on the ice, so it's a super effective way to fish. If you guys are looking for a panfish rod through the ice, you're gonna see me using this one a ton. 42-inch noodle by Elliott Rods, absolutely unbelievable feel to it, and it's going to be an absolute killer on the ice this season. Now, kind of moving up to one of my favorite standbys that I've been fishing a ton already this year. This is the 44-inch light. It's kind of a great all-around rod, but I love it for like my more finessey walleye application stuff. And same things apply to this rod that apply to all these long rods, is that they load up a lot. Now this rod has a little bit lighter tip, so if you're fishing 1/8 ounce baits, whether that's a spoon or a real small, maybe it's some other small rattle bait or blade bait, it's got a real light, soft tip where that tip will load up just a little bit. But the biggest advantage, when you're fishing walleyes, so whether that's in a shallow water bite like red, or whether you're fishing a deep flat on Mille Lacs, where you're setting the hook hard and that bait is straight down, that fish is straight down. When a rod loads up like that, a walleye rod, you play those fish out a lot more, and you can put a lot of pressure on a stiff rod on a fish that's only 30 feet below you. It's as deep as most of us fish. So having a rod that loads and flexes keeps those fish pinned a lot more than a rod, a 28-inch rod that's just gonna load like that. when that fish starts head shaking on 28-inch rod, your rod's going like this. When he starts head shaking on this rod, your rod's going like this. So you don't get slackline and you don't lose fish as often. This 44-inch light in the Evolution series is my absolute favorite, kind of that light size finesse walleye application stuff. Now kind of moving on to a new one this year. And this is the 45 medium. This is at the other end of the spectrum. This is going to be for your bigger glide baits, your number 9 jigging wraps, your bigger hyper rattles, your bigger blade baits, your bigger rip and wrap style lures. And this rod, same things apply. And you got to make sure, whether you're buying whatever kind of rod you're buying, that it has enough load, especially for ice fishing, that you're not losing fish. So like I said, this is a 45 medium, great like power fishing, deep water rod, bigger baits, but the same things have to apply. You can see how this load is real parabolic. What you have seen a lot of ice fishing rods that might be this long is you're just loading it like that, and same thing's going to happen. When you're fighting that fish on a big bait and he's making those big head shakes and runs at the hole, the rod's going like that. When you're fighting on this rod, look how deep it loads into that rod. You get a lot of rod to load these fish up. And I'm just talking about the practical things. I'm not talking about how good they feel in your hand, how sensitive they are, how light they are, all those kind of things. So this is your big bait rod for walleyes. That 44 light's going to be a great finesse walleye rod that most of us are probably looking for. And that 42 noodle's kind of a phenomenal rod for everything panfish under the ice. So hopefully this kind of was a good wrap up for you guys, kind of showing you what I like about these rods, and absolutely check them out. I'll link them all down below so you guys can see them. But this is what I love about this. And my prediction is that every rod company in the next couple of years is going to go to these longer rods after people see how effective fishing these are. All right, guys, we're over here at Reed's Sporting Goods, one of my absolute favorite places to stop when I'm up on one of my favorite lakes up on Leech, and we're talking about set lines, and specifically the beaver dam tip-up, what makes a beaver dam tip-up, and a lot of rigging stuff. And the set lines are obviously a huge part of ice fishing. What makes the beaver dam special is obviously the spool. It's got one of the smoothest, most sensitive spools around, and ultimately that's what makes a beaver dam a beaver dam. These fish, whether it's a smaller perch, whether you're fishing perch on tip-ups, which we do a lot, whether you're fishing walleyes, those fish feel no resistance with this spool, even when it's super cold out and things are frozen. But kind of talking about set lines, we've been using set lines obviously forever through the ice. The number one tip I'd give you with fishing tip-ups or dead sticks or any kind of set line is don't be complacent with it. And what I mean by that is fish it just like a jigging presentation, where you'd never jig the same hole at the end of the day, and if you don't catch fish at the end of the day, complain about it. You got to move the set lines around too. I move them around just like when I'm jig fishing. I might grid out a huge area to move through that area jigging for walleyes, and I might have another tip up with me or a couple if I'm in Wisconsin or Minnesota, and I might move that tip up a whole bunch of times throughout the day. So you can use your tip up to ultimately find more fish and ultimately catch more fish. So if you drill out that big spread and that tip up in one corner keeps going off, go jig in that area. If you're jigging over on this side and you keep catching fish jigging but the tip up's not going off, move it. Move those set lines all day long and you're going to be 100% more productive on the water. Now talking about rigging quick, most of the time you get your standard tip up line on there, the beaver dam tip up line in like a 30-pound. Then I'll go all the way down to a swivel. And most of the time if I'm fishing walleyes in clear water, I like to go to a 6 or a 7 foot lead of 8 or 10 pound fluorocarbon down to a size 8 or 10 treble hook with a small split shot up above it. Now what I really like to do is peg that split shot about that far from the hook, about 6-8 inches from the hook. What that's going to do is it's going to keep that minnow, whether you're fishing a shiner or a sucker, from getting way up high. A lot of guys want to keep that weight way away from the hook, and what happens is that walleye will come up that wants to stay pinned to the bottom, and he'll push that minnow way up there like that, and he won't eat. So if you peg that weight real close to that hook, he's just going to be able to go that far, which is ultimately going to catch you a lot more fish. Now, if I'm fishing in an area that might have a lot of pike and walleyes, I might go up to like a 15, 17 pound fluorocarbon, something a little bit tougher like that, but still keep that smaller hook on there. So set lines this winter, absolutely killer way to catch fish. The beaver dam's one of the best around. Move those things around, don't be complacent, you'll catch a whole bunch more walleyes this winter through the ice. All right, well there was kind of my day at the St. Paul Ice Show. Crazy busy, crazy amount of people, and it was great to meet just an absolute ton of you guys. I appreciate everybody came up and talked ice fishing for a while. And kind of in the way home I was thinking, I kind of live in this bubble where I go fishing every day and don't really think about anything of it, and film it and put it on YouTube, and you see the comments, you see the likes, you see the subscribers, everything like that. But it's always cool going to places like that where a lot of you guys are there and talking to you guys and saying like, oh man, these are all real people that are watching this stuff, and we're calling back to old videos and things like that. So I am incredibly grateful for everybody who watches this channel, and anytime I get an opportunity to talk to you guys like that in person, it's absolutely awesome. And obviously I make a living off of doing what you guys allow me to do by watching and subscribing and commenting. So I'm incredibly thankful for that. And yeah, it was a good time. Ton of enthusiasm, ton of excitement there. I came back to an absolute whiteout, crazy blizzard. There's like 6-8 inches of snow outside already. Absolutely crazy, which is not good for the ice. But there is some cold coming, which will be good for the ice. And in a day here, I'm going to be back filming a whole bunch of stuff, ice fishing content for you guys. So I appreciate you guys watching this video. This is just kind of a quick rundown on some of the the stuff I like to use, and some of the questions hopefully were answered on some of the products that we've been using in some of this year's ice videos so far. And yeah, had a great time down there. So I appreciate you guys watching this video. It's just kind of quick, little different vloggy style, whatever video from down there at the show. But yeah, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more content, and we'll be back on the ice soon, catching a whole bunch of fish.